You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. So the next article I wanted to take a look at was by activist mommy, and the name of it is Joe Biden was asked about overpopulation. His suggestion: let them have abortions. Interesting. I feel like she's probably distorting it just a little bit. But let's just read the article and see what it has to say. At a town hall forum late last month, Democratic presidential frontrunner Joe Biden was asked about some pressing issues believed to be facing our planet, including climate change and overpopulation. According to the Washington Examiner, Biden gave a meandering word salad of a response, because what else would we expect from Uncle Joe, including a vague suggestion that removing all roadblocks between a woman and the right to medically assassinate her unborn child to combat overpopulation. Okay. What she said here, Biden gave a meandering word salad of a response. I'm actually kind of concerned for Joe Biden. He did have brain surgery at one point fairly recently, I believe. And people have been saying it's possible that he's got dementia, or it's coming on at the very least. And I'm just kind of worried about Joe Biden, actually, in reality. If he does get the nomination, I am going to vote for him currently. That's my plan. Because generally speaking, I vote for the candidate who will do the least harm and who has the highest chance of success. So right now in the primaries, I'm voting Bernie Sanders all the way. When it comes to a general election, if it happens to be Biden, I will do what I did in 2016. I will bitch about it on Twitter. I will complain. I will yell about it. I will hold my nose and hit the Hillary button. I will hit the Biden button. I'm not going to like it, but Biden would be objectively less harmful than Trump, because Biden will not fill the Supreme Court or other federal judgeships with right-wing extremist judges. That alone, just right there, is enough reason for me to vote Biden. There are other reasons. He takes climate change seriously, or at least more seriously than Trump does. I don't worry about his position on abortion, obviously, because this article is talking about that pretty clearly, that he seems to be in support of abortions. So I will be voting for Biden if he happens to be the candidate. I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to do it. Anyway, let's continue with the article, see what else it says. Seriously, according to the Examiner, Biden appeared to be wrapping up his South Carolina town hall last Thursday before answering one last question. Quote, "The majority of the world's population growth takes place in the poorest countries in the world where women aren't being empowered," an audience member told Biden. "What will you do to help empower women in the world's poorest countries?" If that isn't the most softball leading question I've ever heard, directly linking overpopulation to the lack of empowerment of women, oh my, whatever could they be referring to? The question set Biden up to spend the next 20 minutes of his life responding to the question, according to the Examiner. Quote, Biden noted that the populations in many developed countries have declined, stated that the U.S. should be an example of a global standard for treatment of women, and said programs that help women generate economic growth in those countries should be funded. He then subtly suggested that the U.S. should help those women get access to abortions. I strongly oppose the limitations on the ability for the U.S. to contribute to organizations in these countries that, in fact, provide women's health alternatives for choice, Biden said, prompting applause from the crowd of more than 1,900 people. That sure was an awful lot of extra words when he could have just taken a page out of Marie Antoinette's book and said, let them have abortions. All right. Here's the thing with abortion. It's a nuanced conversation. I understand that it's a nuanced conversation. It's not as cut and dry as it seems all the time. I am in favor of people having the choice to get an abortion, and I will not judge you if you do have one. I would be in favor of having one if life circumstances weren't where they need to be. Because at the end of the day, though it is a candidate for the human race, as Christopher Hitchens used to say, it's still 150 cells at a certain point. Like with 3 days in, it's 150 cells. A blastocyst. There is nothing there. At a certain point, it gains personhood. So the question is, at what point does it gain personhood? At what point does it kind of gain its status as a human? Because at a certain point, it does gain personhood, but at what point? There's a progression from the date of conception where two cells meet. There's a progression from that point with just two cells all the way to baby. So at what point in that transition does it actually become a person? There's really no muscle tissue at all to speak of at a certain point during the pregnancy. There's no brain tissue at all at a certain point in the pregnancy. So at what point does it become a human? Like I said, I understand there is a nuanced discussion to be had here. And if you're an atheist, a fellow atheist, and you disagree with my position that abortions should be accepted, socially accepted and legally accepted up to, say, 10 weeks or 20 weeks, if you disagree with me on that, that's okay. I understand that there's a lot to this. That is really okay with me. That's just how I feel personally. So anyways, let's continue reading this. We should end that limitation, Biden added. It's called the Mexico City rule. We should end that. The Mexico City policy, first established by Ronald Reagan in 1984, requires that overseas organizations receiving aid from the U.S. do not promote abortion. I didn't even know about that. Fascinating. Barack Obama overturned the policy in 2009, but Donald Trump reestablished it early in his presidency in January 2017. I had no idea. I did not know about that. For anyone otherwise unaware, I'd like to offer a friendly reminder that the notion of global overpopulation is completely and utterly false. Oh, here we go. Not only does our amazing planet have the square acreage to house more people than could ever possibly exist at one given time. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, and a confusing one at that, but let's just continue reading. It also has the resources to sustain us. That's just flat out not true. Much of what is perceived as overpopulation is, in fact, overcrowding and is solved by better city planning. No, it's not. It's not an overcrowding problem. New York City has managed just fine to pack a whole bunch of people into a really tiny place. It's not an overcrowding problem. It is a resource problem, okay? For every human on the planet, we need a certain number of acres to grow food to feed that human being. So right now we have like 7-8 billion people, I think we're coming up on the planet. You can pack them onto this planet like sardines and fill it 10 trillion people wide if you wanted to, I guess, maybe. But where is the food going to grow? You have to find a place to grow the food. GMOs have been contributing a lot to that, helping us solve the problem of overpopulation. It's not an overcrowding problem. That is a complete misunderstanding of the issue here. I feel like this woman starts with a conclusion and works backwards. Nobody's saying that it's overcrowded. We're saying that you can't feed this many people with this little farmland. I know that there's a ton of space in the Arctic where people could build houses. There's a ton of space in Africa that people could build houses. That's not the problem. There's only so much viable farming land. We can't grow crops in the Arctic. The temperatures and seasons just are not right for it. We can't grow certain crops in certain areas of Africa. The farmland just is not there. And to solve the lack of farmland issue that we're dealing with right now, some countries in South America actually started burning down the Amazon rainforest to make more farmland, to make room for farmland, as devastating as that is. We are destroying the environment by trying to feed our population. We have to do something about this population problem. We have to. Biden's suggestion, allow people to get abortions, I don't think that's really a viable solution because there's still that social stigma behind it. Most people will say, yeah, I'm in favor of allowing people to get abortions, but no, I would never get one myself. I don't think the vast majority of people would get one, no matter how pro-choice they are, no matter how libertarian they are on the issue. So I don't think that's really a viable solution, abortions. That was probably just a talking point to get the crowd to cheer for him. I think a solution to the overpopulation problem would be step one, get people like this nutcase to realize that it's even a problem. And step two, limit how many kids people can have to 2. China did this forever ago. I think the US could do it too. And allow for exemptions in certain circumstances. Honestly, I don't think that the US is really the issue, though, with overpopulation. The biggest problem right now is probably African countries and Middle Eastern countries. Because they've, some Middle Eastern countries have straight up told their people to reproduce as much as humanly possible. It is something to be concerned about, but I truly, honestly do not think that it's a problem that's going to be solved until we start running out of food and starving to death. So